So we're here in Anderson, Indiana, outside Anderson, Indiana, and true stock car fans will know that is basically the home of ASA. You know, Anderson Speedway, Little 500, the Red Bud, and all that. Is that kind of? I mean, were your parents race fans? I mean, they're like, hey, let's go to Anderson, or could they have cared less?
Oh no. I mean, racing's been something our family has been into forever. My dad raced go-karts as a kid. You know, we went to the ASA races as a kid, Anderson Speedway, Little 500.
Who was your favorite at Anderson?
Oh, Jim Cooper.
Wow,
Yeah, Super Cooper. Became a friend, and I haven't talked to him in years, and you know, it's probably one guy I'd love to talk to, you know, more and more. But yeah, as far
what a
as
track.
yeah, it's
High banked, I mean, tight. Oh my God, that place is. I mean, if you can't drive there, you can't drive anywhere.
yeah.
I mean, they scheduled a couple ARCA races there, late '90s, early 2000s. I thought, and I'd never been there. When I got there, I'm like, what?
I wish they would too. I wish they would schedule another ARCA race there, because you talk about a racetrack that would separate some of the
Men from the girls from the
the
women.
however you want to put that.
Wow.
But that would definitely be one that would definitely do that, and I think we'd be pretty good there.
Well, you know, I look back at your results, and I got them here from Third Turn and Racing Reference and Ultimate Racing History, and you know, no offense, but you weren't that impressive when you first started out. What was going on? It just maybe too young. We used to have a saying in the Navy: too young, too dumb.
Oh man,
just not enough money, not enough talent, not enough time.
So, I mean, if we want to be honest, it's just not enough money, not enough experience. When I was 16. I'm going to take you back even before that. I rode my bicycle to Terry Riggins. He's a local masonry company here. I rode my bicycle from my house to his masonry shop.
How far is that?
Mile and a half, 2 miles from my house. And that's how I was able to earn enough money to buy my first go-kart.
Wow.
My parents, I kind of snookered them.
You rich kid, you.
Yeah, I kind of snookered my parents because I had saved money, and you know, back then it was like, I think it was the trader paper, the pink papers,
Yeah.
and so I had kind of had go-karts circled, and I kind of went and asked them if I saved up my own money, would they let me buy a go-kart? My dad, like, oh yeah, sure. I don't exactly remember how it went, but my dad was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And my mom, I think she was completely against it, but she went with it because she's like, there's no way it's going to happen.
You didn't do like Ralphie and Christmas Story, put the magazine on her pillow?
No. So I think within like 2 or 3 weeks after they said that, I had already had like a half a summer saved up, right? And I think my first go-kart was like $800 or something like that.
I wore,
and this is, gosh, what, 26 years ago? I was 15, I think I was 14 or 15, and I wore my dad's old go-kart uniform.
Oh, cool.
So you know, it had to be over 10 years old. I don't remember how old he was or how old I was when he stopped racing. But I wore my dad's old go-kart uniform, and my dad made me a deal that if I bought my own go-kart, he'd buy me a helmet. So looking back, I probably put my parents in a bad spot because they probably weren't in a situation where they could have afforded to buy that helmet. But my dad, I don't think wanted to let me down, you know, and
well, he gave his word.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go against that. So
and they probably saw how hard you were working too. I mean,
right.
He's putting an interest in, like Chris Bailey, for example, 2010 ARCA Truck Series champion. As a little kid, he had, you know, Beanie Babies were huge. You and he are about the same age. Beanie Babies were huge. He was what, 6, 7, 8 years old, and he wanted to go racing. And his dad said, "Well, you're going to invest in this too." So he sold his Beanie Baby when it was worth something. Now, you know, not working it. And he said that's how they bought the first cart. And his dad said, "You show me, I'll do this."
Yeah.
So it sounds the same thing.
Yeah. So raced that for a year. It's terrible. You know, I mean, I was a 15-year-old kid trying to do what I could. I remember getting got to the winter, and I got, I'm pretty sure I got a job at PetSmart, I think is where I went after that. And we bought a mini stock, and 90% sure, I don't know where the funding from that came from, but I'm 90% sure my dad took a 401k loan for that.
It wasn't PetSmart money.
It wasn't PetSmart money. And then we just kind of progressed, and you know, I remember my uncle helping us, you know, helping us build the car, my grandfather, my uncles, all, you know, it was kind of a family thing, you know. And I feel like that's back in the day when you could still do that, right? And,
Yeah.
and I know you can still do that today, but anyway, then that's about the time I turned 16. And when I was 16, I had 3 jobs. I had manipulated and tricked the school.
What'd I say? Tenacious G?
Yeah, you weren't allowed to, I mean, you were 16, you were only allowed to work like, what, 15 hours a week or something like that. Well, newspapers didn't fall under that category, so
True. Cash didn't fall into the category either.
yeah, I don't know that I had any cash jobs. I mean, I always had jobs that I was doing, right? Like I was always working for a farmer down the street or whatever.
Under the table, right?
But I worked at PetSmart, I worked at Advance Auto Parts, and then I was delivering newspapers.
Again, so you started out, it's like, how do you do all, well, you were doing that when you were 16.
Yeah, it's just what I've always done. Like everybody's like, well, how do you do
wouldn't know
this?
what to do with that.
How do you do that? It's like, I don't know.
Doing it forever.
I can't sit, you know, like off weekends and stuff. I mean, Saturday by noon, if I'm not busy, I'm doing something.
There's no moss growing under your tush or your feet.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then
Answer that question. I scratched that off. Where do you find the time to do all that?
yeah. And then while I was working at PetSmart, that's where I met my wife. I worked with her mother at PetSmart, and
God, you're not dating a racer, I hope.
I think that's why her mom wanted to date me, was because I was a racer.
Get me in for free.
Yeah. And I will.
Just kidding, Christi's mom. Just kidding.
I'll never forget like the first conversation I had with her, because I laugh because I brag about it, but I don't know where I would actually be without her, right? I remember telling her the first time I talked to her, it's like I'm, you know, I'll sum it up, but basically I'm racing, and if you don't like it, you know, I don't care if it's 2 weeks down the road, 2 years down the road, 20 years down the road. If you don't like it, you know, it's just not going to work.
Richard Petty told Linda the same thing.
And
Racing's first, you're second. He told her up front.
Yeah.
Can't say I didn't warn you.
I don't know that I would put her second now.
Well, I was going to say that was then.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, she's been there with me. She's been my rock from the beginning, and I think that plays a huge role in my career as a racer, as a business owner. Because when you get a woman like that supports you and stands behind you, you can make moves, and you can take risks, and you can do things, and you know that you have her love. Like, you may not have her opinion on everything.
Yeah, you guys don't agree on everything, of course.
Right, but you know that she's not going to, you know, get mad and divorce you over buying a race car. I mean, I have bought a ton of race cars through the years that she didn't know about. I think she didn't know about, or whatever.
She's not mechanical. She won't know the difference.
She knows. I'm not gonna play off like she doesn't know, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. Like she's the rock that has allowed me to pursue these things.
Life is stressful enough without realizing, okay, I'm coming home to a stressful environment. The spouse is going to be mad. It's another, you know, World War III, 4, 5, whatever. Yeah, I mean, you know, and I'm sure you support what she does. I mean, you know, There's no, well, I'm doing this, well, I'm doing this. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be. Well, like you were talking about in the one interview, I don't know if it's in the press room at Daytona or whatever. You're talking about you had moved to Florida for a little while, was working with a guy, and you had what? $1,200 in your account. You bought a race car with it.
Well,
and you guys said, wait a minute.
Yes,
what are we doing?
So, I mean, you know, how long do you want to go, right?
Well, it's as long as you want to go.
So, you know, we progressed through racing. We going back to the stats thing, right? we move up through racing. I remember people telling me, you shouldn't be moving up. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be going to that because you haven't won. You haven't done this. You haven't done that.
Jimmy Johnson won one Xfinity race before he got his cup ride.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you talking about?
I mean, we were the car that was, I mean, we would finish on the lead lap in races, and that was a big deal for us.
I didn't mean to make it sound like you sucked, but you're
I
that
did.
guy.
I did. I mean, you're not going to offend me. I did suck. I mean,
He had some respectable finishes in Robert Locke's car. You know,
right.
Mechanical issues. I think he had a 15th, I think, at Chicago or something, or was it? That's not bad.
No, we were
His
running.
Stuff, that's not
we
bad.
were running inside the top 10.
Yeah.
So I lost my ride there, and I was working at a factory in Indianapolis. I'm pretty sure I was the reason why they have rules against overtime there. I remember.
Why is Greg here till midnight every night?
Oh no, I worked midnights. It was why is Greg here all
noon.
day? That's it, because I worked midnights, so I was a third shifter. I remember sleeping in my truck, and I found out there was a shower there. And I think there was several 22-hour days. Young,
And they read it, so wait a minute.
early 20s.
I mean, 12 or 22?
Yeah, early 20s, you could go forever without sleep. I used to tell my mom I'd get enough sleep when I'm dead. I think it's catching up to me now, but I mean, I remember like sneaking into those showers, showering, and then going and sitting in my truck, turning some music on, turning the AC or heat on, and trying to take a nap, and then going back in, because there was a deal where if you found somebody that could work your shift, you could work for them.
Wow.
Well, then it got turned in. You couldn't work any more than 16, and then they backed it down to 12. But that's,
come on.
Yeah. I mean, I was getting really good paychecks. So, we were doing the Hooters Pro Cup stuff at that time. And
what a good series that was too. That was not
that was
fly-by-night operation.
Yeah, I mean, we had very few.
Gene Cox and Bob Brooks, and they put some effort and money into that.
Yeah, I think we had one top 10.
I think you're right.
Is all we had. Very few lead lap finishes. I mean, in a lack of a better term, we sucked. But what I'll tell you that I didn't understand, that I understand now, and I think this is where a lot of people in racing fail to realize, you can't buy experience. And what I mean by that is, if you're in the garage and you're working hard, you're working your absolute tail off, you're still not going to beat the guy that's been doing this for 20 some years. You're just not. You might get lucky, right? If there is one thing that somebody came to me and said, I have X amount of dollars per race to spend, what would I buy to make myself better? Back then, I would hire a crew chief, because I thought I knew how to set up a race car. I knew how to set up a car. I knew how to get ride heights. I knew how to do the wedge. I knew how to do a few things.
You're buying his experience.
Yeah. You buy that crew chief's experience. And I didn't understand that when I was younger, and that's why we sucked. I mean, straight up, that's why we sucked. I didn't understand that. I bought a carburetor, and I bought shocks, and all this stuff I bought, and we never got better. So it was frustrating, right? But I just kept working. I just kept thinking.
You doubt yourself.
Yeah, you doubt yourself. And then, I think when I got in the Locks car, that was the first time that I had a real crew chief, in the sense of somebody that knows about the race car and hasn't come along with me and learned alongside me as a friend and as a buddy. I mean, I've had friends and buddies through the years that they're my crew chief, but
they'll be honest with you. Say, no, this is the way we do it. Not that way we do it.
They had the same experience or less than what I did, right? And when I got in the locked car, that's when maybe I thought, hey, I can really drive, because we had some good runs. I remember Kentucky. I think it was my first race. what was it? It was Dale Jarrett's son. Was it Jason Jarrett?
Jason Jarrett. Mm-hmm.
I remember
67
like we're like 3/4 of the way through this race, and I'm racing him on a
him.
restart, right? Like
That was a great car too.
yeah, I mean,
Championship contending car.
yeah, I'm like, man, this is awesome. You know, this is something that I've not really ever done. I've had to race a really good team, and you know, when I lost that ride and stuff, and you know, then got back into the Hooters Pro, or I was, you know, got into the Hooters Pro Cup Series and stuff. I that never clicked. That the reason why I ran good in there was because, you know, I had somebody that knew the cars in and out working on them. You know, I think there was an engineer on the team, and
You mean when he told the crew chief, "Well, this is what I run for a setup," and he started laughing at you? It wasn't a, you know, a telltale sign. Just kidding.
I guess you don't pick up on that stuff, you know, and you think you would, but you don't pick up on it.
Yeah. Well, and then you run the Hooters Cup. That was, I believe, 04, I think.
I think
You ran-
04, 05.
Yeah, you ran.
There
you
was several
ran-
years there.
Yeah, you ran. Yeah, the last one was 06, but that was
Yeah.
like one off. Well, you ran half the season in 05, and a one off in 06, and then is that when you start kind of going, maybe I need to kind of take a step back, and maybe I need to do a little something different?
No, I think the passion was still there. It was still the same.
Or you were forced into?
Well, so I got a job opportunity. We moved to Florida, and
I mean, if you're gonna be homeless, might as well do it where it's warm, right?
yeah, there you go. There you go. You know, we got married. We took the job in Florida, and I say we because it was a decision between the both of us. And I don't want to say I regret it, but honestly, it was just not too long ago before I realized that my wife only had one semester left of college when we moved.
Wow.
And
okay.
when I talk about you don't know the sacrifices that people make, that
Why
right
do you think
there-
I'm here, and why do you think I have a show?
Right. That's,
I want people
that's,
to understand.
That's a sacrifice that, like, I'm in. Like, this is my life, and we've been together forever, and I just learned that. I don't know if it was just like it's been within
But it
the
also
last
makes
2
it all the more
years.
sweet.
Right. It makes it all the better, right? And so we moved down there, and I'm working in a race shop. I learned a ton off of a guy named Eddie Brand. And you know, he passed away right after we moved back, and I mean, a lot of people miss him, but that guy is probably one of the guys that has changed. He changed my thinking of racing because he seen what I was doing at the shop, and he was brutal. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Truth hurts.
yeah, he was that guy. He
A
was,
racer changed his thinking on something? Wow.
He was-
amazing you would admit that. Most don't admit it
Yeah.
or do it.
He was that guy that people either loved him or hated him, but everybody I think respected
But you
him.
remember him.
And you remembered him. And
Look how it affects you because you remember. Whether you love him or hate him, you're talking about him.
yeah, he was one of the guys that I think kind of shaped me to who I am today because he was so brutally honest. A lot of people didn't like him because he was honest, and that's who I am today, is very brutally honest.
Well, it's one thing to be a member, a unit. I won't say the other word. But it's another thing to be honest. You know, if you're just being a jerk to be a jerk, that's not cool. But if you're being honest, then people think, well, yeah, but like I've told people, well, if you tell me I'm too fat, well, duh, you know, I know. But if you tell me, well, like for example, I don't know, I play golf with cats' heads. You know, I just laugh at you. It's not true.
Right.
But you need to lose some weight. I know. You're right. You know, and it's like like the former president. They said he's like, you know, he was so mean, but he was honest. He's like that doctor that tells you you're too fat, you're going to die of a heart attack. Well, that was mean. Well, he's right though.
Yeah.
That's what people
Yeah.
need. But they're so. You can go ahead and get that. Oh no, it's up to you because I'm sure that thing's going crazy. But yeah, so then it was back to Indiana.
Yeah, so
Indiana.
things didn't really work out down there. I would say probably more homesick.
Most people don't come back; they usually stay.
Well, so
or
we
North
had,
Carolina or whatever.
We had opportunities when we were deciding that we were going to leave.
Because that was still like at the time where NASCAR was booming in
Yeah.
06, 07, 08. It was still
Yeah, so in that time period,
Well, NASCAR, ARCA, a lot of races.
Right. Eddie was one of the guys that knew I was leaving. And he was like, I mean, I was building cars. I mean, I was building late models, modifieds. And he said, hey, I can get you on several different shops in North Carolina. What do you want to do? And I'm like, man, thought about it. He called from some people. I mean, he walked over the phone one day and called a cup team and told him, and he come back over to me and he's like, you can start Monday if you want. So I go home and talk to Christi.
There's the carrot.
Yeah, I go home, I talk to Christi, and she said, I want to go home. So we went home. And I don't regret that, right? Like, I mean, that's what shaped us. Come back home, and I pretty much...
Please tell me she got the last part of her schooling done. If she didn't know that.
She has not.
Oh, okay.
So we come back home, and she we were pregnant at the time, so she was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
She was expecting. That's part of the reason why we came home, right? Because everybody talks about being away. Everybody wants to leave home. We're homebodies, right?
Grass is not always greener.
Right. It was Florida. It was nice. Oh, everybody wants to be in Florida. The thing is when you go vacation in Florida, you always know you're coming back. So you
It's not
always
a destination now.
right. When you live in Florida, I'll never forget the day that my parents helped us move and whatnot. We dropped them off at the airport. We're in I don't remember if it was a truck or car, but we just kind of look at each other and we're like, now what? Like,
Just us.
like we were kids, and I mean, we were in our 20s and we were kids, but it was like, now we have to become adults. Like, there's nobody to help us anything, right? There's nothing.
You
like,
burn the ships.
yeah, we're on our own.
Back, yeah.
We're on our own. So that was kind of part of the reason, she was pregnant, so we wanted to come back home. We come back home, we buy a house here in Anderson, and we had 3 dogs at the time, and I built a fence. I built a fence at our first house before we moved to Florida. I built a fence at this house, and my boss's aunt lived across the street. And she told my boss about how nice the fence was, and man, it's a really nice fence. He did a really good job on it. All that. Well, I start driving sprint cars for a guy down the street. Again, absolutely terrible, right? Like, never ran right. The thing almost didn't even have enough power to turn the tires over on dirt. So,
Which you need, of course.
yeah, so we get through a year or so of that, and then the next year, another guy comes on with the sprint car deal, builds a motor for it, and we get 2 or 3 races in, and we're at Gas City, and it was a very soupy, slick night. It was a traveling series that came in, and it was our heat race. Several cars had flipped in the hot lap session. Several cars had flipped in the heat races prior to mine, and
Ain't gonna be me.
well, I don't know what I was thinking before, but I'm digging, going through 3 and 4, and next thing I know, everything's like just going quiet, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then it hit. And it caught, and it hit, and it caught, and it hit, and it caught. I think I flipped 7 times, and it knocked me out. I mean, I remember flipping. I remember coming to the car was still moving, and then I remember everything being black and an official standing right there going, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine."
I think.
I'm tough, right? I'm always fine. And so it knocked me out. This was Friday night. Saturday morning, I got paid every 2 weeks, and like I said, I think we had $1,250 in our checking account. Saturday morning, I go and I buy a chassis for $1,200. I won't say it's the dumbest thing I've ever done,
But it ranks in top 5, huh?
but looking back, like it was very, very dumb. We had a newborn, and I mean, where was I going to get my next paycheck, right? Another 2 weeks away. But my thought process was, I got to get to the racetrack next week because we're racing for points. And I don't know what I thought it was going to get me. I mean, there was no way we were going to win the points championship. There was no way we were probably even going to win a race that year.
Tenacious G.
But it's just the mentality that you got to go to the racetrack. So, bloodshot eyes, black eyes, I mean, headache. Clearly probably had a concussion. Didn't go to the hospital, didn't go to the doctor. And I'm out in the shop working on the car, trying to get a bolt to go through the chassis to bolt it together. And I can't get it. I mean, it's something so simple, but my brain was so scrambled I couldn't do it.
But now with a concussion, it ain't simple.
Right.
Yeah.
I get mad. I kick the car off the stands.
Holy crap.
I have changed through the years, and I hope I never let my my temper that I've had through the years, I've never gotten in trouble with it, but I hope my temper through the years never comes out. I break stuff.
Well, it's better than hitting people, I guess.
Well, and that's what I'm saying.
Hit the hole in the wall, not the person.
It's probably the reason why I am is like I want to be friends with everybody because I'm afraid if I'm not and somebody does something stupid, I might break them in half. But like, I've broke fence posts out on the fence job before because of my anger. Like 4x4 posts just snapped them, and my guys just look at me like, oh crap, you know. So
that's the boss. Don't piss him off.
yeah. So anyway, going back to that story,
Chassis on the ground.
Yeah, I go in the house and I'm like, I'm done. And she's like, what do you mean? And you know,
inside she's saying, hallelujah.
I don't know what she was thinking, but I know she was thinking something. You know, I could tell like something's, you know, in her view, in her eyes, something was not right. And she's like, well, what are you going to do? And I just blurted out, like, I don't know, I'm going to start a fence company or something. I'm not racing again until I can do this right. And that's what happened. I put an ad out on, at the time, it's Craigslist. I don't even know if Craigslist still exists.
I think they do.
Yeah. And I put out there that, look, I've built a couple fences and I'm just looking to earn extra money. And I wish I knew the guy's name because I'd definitely look him up, but I had a doctor that had just moved from Chicago area, I believe. And that was the first phone call I got. And he believed in me enough to let me build his fence. I mean, that could have went really bad, right? You hear horror stories.
I was just going to say, doctor, you know, Mr. Precise. Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So anyway, I go out. I think I'm working day shift at this time, and I'm kind of doing it in the evenings. And
again, not home.
yeah, again, not home. And
wow. I'd hate to see your schedule.
the first week, it took me a week to build this fence, and now it should take like it's like a 2-day project for us, right? And I made more money in that first week than I think I did in like a month of working, and I'm like, wow, this is insane.
Why didn't I do this before?